When I moved into Sycamore Ridge, I had a fantasy. A soft little dream that smelled faintly of fresh-cut grass and barbecue smoke. I imagined lazy Saturdays, neighborhood dogs barking at squirrels, and possibly even joining a book club I pretend to read for. What I did not anticipate was Karen. Oh, sweet summer child that I was. Let me back up. After years of surviving urban chaos, sirens as lullabies and landlords who thought heat included meant emotional warmth, I'd finally saved enough to buy a modest house in the suburbs. 3 bedrooms, a backyard big enough to justify a grill I had no idea how to use, and a weather-worn fence that might have been built the same year as the moon landing. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and I loved it. For the first 2 weeks, things were quiet. Too quiet, in hindsight. I should have known something was wrong when no one warned me. Then came the knock. A percussive, impatient rat-a-tat-tat, like someone challenging me to a duel. I opened the door, still holding a toaster manual in one hand, and there she was. A bleach blonde bob, wraparound sunglasses even though the sky was cloudy, and a clipboard that pulsed with unearned authority. She looked like she'd been designed in a lab to snitch on children selling lemonade without permits. "Hi, I'm Karen. I'm the president of the Sycamore Ridge HOA," she said, with all the warmth of a speeding ticket. "Welcome to the neighborhood." She didn't wait for me to respond. Instead, she looked past me into my house like she was casing the joint. "I wanted to go over some expectations," she continued, flipping through her clipboard like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Your grass is an inch over acceptable height. We prefer natural tone paint palettes for fences, no bright colors or murals. And oh, by the way, your trash bins need to be off the curb by 10:01 a.m. on Thursdays. Not 10:02. We have cameras." "Cameras. Right." I managed a tight smile. "Got it. Thanks for the heads up." She gave a curt nod, turned like a parade general, and marched away. And that was day 1. Over the next few weeks, I realized Karen didn't run the HOA so much as she embodied it. If there was a petty rule, she enforced it like it was the law of the land. If there wasn't a petty rule, she'd invent one, usually scribbled in passive-aggressive ink on a neon sticky note. "Please remove your gnome. Lawn decor is discouraged." Front lights were on until 11:15 p.m. That's disruptive. "Saw a delivery driver step on your grass. Consider signage." My personal favorite was the time she rang my doorbell just to inform me that my wind chimes sounded emotionally aggressive. Emotionally aggressive. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about Karen, I don't know what will. The thing is, I'm not a confrontational guy. I like my peace. That's why I left the city. But Karen seemed to treat tranquility like it was a personal affront. And slowly, she started turning my slice of suburbia into a Kafkaesque HOA boot camp. She terrorized everyone. Kids couldn't draw with chalk on the sidewalks because it encourages graffiti. Neighbors were fined for having holiday decorations up 2 days past the seasonal window. One poor guy got written up because his hammock looked too relaxed. I wish I were kidding. But what really pushed me over the edge wasn't the notes, or the fines, or even the time she threatened to tow my car because the tire angle suggested disrepair. No, it was the fence incident. It happened on a Wednesday morning. I was sipping my coffee, admiring the fence I'd just pressure washed over the weekend. The sun caught it just right. Sure, it was basic. Just aged wood, clean and simple. But it had charm. A sort of rustic. I have better things to do than stain this energy. Then she showed up. No knock this time. I just looked out the kitchen window and saw her standing in my yard, arms crossed, clipboard aimed at the fence like it had personally insulted her. I went outside. Something wrong. She didn't look at me. Her eyes were fixed on the wood panels like she was appraising a crime scene. "It's uninspired," she finally said. I blinked. "I'm sorry. The fence. It's just so boring. It brings down the neighborhood aesthetic." The way she said it made it sound like my fence was responsible for inflation or climate change. I resisted the urge to ask if she wanted me to hang a Monet on it. Instead, I asked, "What exactly do you want me to do?" She shrugged. In that way, only people on power trips can shrug. Just something more in line with community vibrancy standards. "Maybe don't be afraid to get some creative." "Oh, Karen, you absolute fool. You told the wrong guy to get creative. Because here's the thing she didn't know. I'm a freelance animator. I design characters for a living. I work with cartoons, satire, visual storytelling. And if you give me a canvas, especially one you technically can't regulate because it faces inward, I'm going to use it. That was the moment the idea was born. It came to me fully formed, like a divine vision. If Karen wanted vibrancy, I'd give her a masterpiece. And I already knew who the main character was going to be. I didn't start working on it right away. That would have been too obvious. No. This had to be carefully orchestrated. The kind of pettiness that simmered before boiling over in Technicolor triumph. First, I made sure to reread the HOA guidelines. Every single line. The fence in question faced inward, toward my own backyard. Nowhere in the bylaws did it say I couldn't decorate the inside-facing portion however I pleased. There were rules about outward appearances, yes. But the inward side? That was my playground. My legally protected, HOA-proof slice of free expression. I was giddy. Now, I've drawn a lot of characters in my life. Pirates, aliens, cats that wear suits. But this one needed to be special. I wasn't just drawing a cartoon. I was creating a weaponized form of passive aggression. I spent a few late nights sketching out ideas. Hair that defied gravity, lips pursed in eternal disapproval, a death grip on a clipboard of doom. The eyes were important. They had to radiate judgment. The kind of eyes that made you feel like you committed a felony just by existing. I even debated whether to give her fangs. I didn't, but I came dangerously close. Eventually, I landed on a final version, a towering, exaggerated caricature of Karen in all her HOA glory. Bob haircut inflated to villainous proportions. Sunglasses perched like judgmental sentinels. A no fun allowed sash across her chest. And, of course, the clipboard. It had flames. Once the design was locked in, I started prepping the fence. Bought primer, brushes, exterior acrylics, and a ridiculous amount of sealant. If I was going to immortalize Karen in art, I wanted her image to outlast civilization. And then I painted. Every day for a week, I spent my evenings working on it, carefully, quietly, like a suburban Banksy. The mural spanned 4 panels of the fence and stood about 6 feet tall. Her cartoon doppelganger loomed like a mythical beast, eyes glaring at my backyard barbecue zone. I added small details just for me. HOA citations sticking out of her pockets, a badge that read Fun Police, even a little gnome squished beneath one foot. And at the very bottom, in tasteful, italicized lettering. Disclaimer, any resemblance to real persons, living or clipboard wielding, is purely coincidental. Artistic freedom? Check. Legal protection? Double check. It was glorious. It was petty. It was perfect. All this time it was closed from prying eyes, so I waited until a Saturday to unveil it. Karen's routine was as predictable as an iPhone update. Brisk morning walk at 9 o'clock. HOA surveillance lap at 11 o'clock. I knew exactly when she'd be doing her rounds. So at 10:50, I just so happened to invite a couple neighbors over for coffee in the backyard, seating arranged to offer a perfect view of the mural. The moment arrived, and I went and opened it, just before she came. She strolled past my house like a commander inspecting her troops, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning the world for unauthorized joy. And then she froze. It took a second for her brain to process what she was seeing. She stopped mid-stride, turned her head slowly, mechanically, almost, and stared through the slats in the fence. I could see her expression morph from confusion to recognition to a slow, jaw-unhinging realization that would have made a snake jealous. She didn't speak. Not at first. She just stood there, gaping, like someone had slapped her with a tuna. Then it happened. Her mouth opened, and out came a noise that I can only describe as a cross between a vacuum cleaner choking on gravel and an enraged goose. She stormed into my yard. Yes, into. No knock, no permission, just full banshee mode. You. What is this? She shrieked, gesturing wildly at cartoon Karen, who gazed back with tranquil malevolence. Hi, Karen, I said sweetly, pretending to be surprised. Oh, the mural? Just a little artistic expression. You did say I should be more creative with my fence. That's not me, she screeched, pointing at the image like it had just insulted her ancestors. I blinked innocently. Oh no, of course not. Purely coincidental. See the disclaimer. She actually read it. Out loud. Any resemblance to real persons? Are you mocking me? I looked at my coffee mug thoughtfully. Well, I mean, it's open to interpretation. Art is subjective. The neighbors, who had already started laughing, were now openly giggling. I heard someone behind me mutter, "Oh my God, it even has the clipboard," followed by a choked snort. Karen turned scarlet. The kind of red you only see on thermometers and malfunctioning robots. She started flailing her clipboard around like she was trying to summon HOA lightning from the heavens. "You can't just. This is defamation. You'll hear from the board." "Karen," I said, matching her tone, but with about 80% more sarcasm, "you are the board." Exactly. And that's when the real show started. Neighbors began trickling in from both sides. Drawn in by the shrieking, the laughter, the drama, like suburban moths to a gossip-fueled flame. Within minutes, half the block was gathered, all craning for a view of the mural. Phones came out. Photos were taken. Videos recorded. Karen was in the middle of the yard now, arms flailing, ranting about bylaws and misrepresentation and a complete lack of respect for community hierarchy. Someone asked her what rule I'd broken. She sputtered. She bluffed. She failed. Because I hadn't broken any. Not one. And deep down, I think she knew it. The first laugh was from Mrs. Lindstrom, the 70-year-old on the corner with 8 cats and no tolerance for nonsense. Then came the Henderson twins, followed by a full-on chorus of chuckles, snorts, and someone actually applauding. It was over. Karen just didn't know it yet. You could almost see the exact moment her ego snapped. There was this twitch in her left eye, a small spasm that suggested her brain was trying to reboot in real time, but was trapped in an infinite error loop. Karen was standing in my backyard, surrounded by neighbors she once ruled with the bureaucratic efficiency of a DMV line manager, and she was completely losing it. "This is harassment. It's vandalism. I'm the HOA president," she screeched, stabbing her clipboard at me like it was a wand from the Ministry of Passive-Aggressive Notices. "Karen," I said with all the smug serenity I could summon, "you walked into my yard without permission. That's technically trespassing. Should I file a complaint? Or do you prefer the funeral pyre of irony we're currently standing on?" She didn't respond. Probably because someone in the crowd yelled, "You got cartooned, Karen," and the laughter drowned out whatever banshee shriek she was about to unleash. I looked around at the growing group of spectators. Some were filming. Some were just enjoying the best HOA-themed live theater of the decade. But what really caught my attention was that no one, not one person, stood with her. No one told me to take it down. No one scolded me for being disrespectful. They were done. Months, maybe years, of micromanaged misery had finally caught up with the self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac. And that mural? That gloriously exaggerated portrait of clipboard tyranny? It was the crack in the dam. Later that day, the video started circulating. I didn't post it. Credit goes to the Henderson twins, who somehow managed to slap together a TikTok edit before the sun even set. It opened with Karen's entrance into the backyard, zoomed in on her gobsmacked reaction, then cut to cartoon Karen glaring down from the fence like a judgmental Disney villain. Soundtrack? Celine Dion's "It's All Coming Back to Me Now." Because, of course, by the end of the weekend, the video had over 100,000 views. Then it hit Twitter, or X, or whatever it's pretending to be this week, and that's when it exploded. I didn't ask to go viral, but the internet, bless its chaotic soul, saw that mural and made it their new favorite piece of HOA performance art. By Monday, the HOA group chat was in flames. Yes, I saw the screenshots. Don't ask how. Karen was in full lockdown mode, sending paragraphs of official response laced with phrases like community decorum and defamatory imagery. She tried to spin it as a personal attack, but it was too late. The internet had spoken. Someone made a meme of her cartoon twin with the caption, "Cited for having fun. Report to the HOA dungeon." Another, "When you see grass that's 0.3 inches too tall." The clip of her screeching, "I'm the board," became a soundbite remixed into a club track. I'm not even joking. I still have it saved. Certified banger. But here's where it got really good. Turns out, the HOA doesn't like being laughed at. It thrives on fear, compliance, and veiled threats about shrub height. What it does not thrive on is being the subject of trending hashtags like hashtag KarenGate, hashtag HOA Hellscape, and hashtag FenceJustice. Several homeowners, ones who had quietly been suffering through her reign of terror, suddenly found their courage. People started attending HOA meetings. They brought binders. Questions were asked. Receipts were pulled. Apparently, Karen had been a little flexible with the budget, like the $600 spent on administrative refreshments, which turned out to be weekly Starbucks runs for herself, or the community enhancement project that consisted of exactly one new bench in front of her house. Oh, and my personal favorite? The community security camera system she never got approval for, that just happened to be mounted across from her least favorite neighbor's mailbox. Yeah, the dam didn't just crack. It exploded. By week's end, there was an emergency meeting. A real one. Not the kind where Karen ambushed you in your driveway with a stack of laminated rules. I didn't even have to attend. I already knew how it would go. The people were done being bossed around like interns at a failing startup. Cartoon Karen had become a symbol, a beacon, and, ironically, a rallying point for actual community spirit. That night, I sat on my porch with a cold drink and watched as Karen's house stayed dark. No clipboard patrols. No angry dog whistles. Just crickets. It was peaceful. The kind of quiet I'd hoped for when I moved here in the first place. But we weren't done yet. Not by a long shot. Because when petty tyrants lose power, they rarely go quietly. And Karen? She was not going to disappear without one last screech. Karen went quiet, but not in a good way. Not in a I've seen the error of my ways and shall now live humbly among the people kind of way. No, this was the brooding silence of someone plotting a comeback tour no one asked for. The mural was still up, bold as ever. Cartoon Karen stood sentry over my backyard like a sarcastic guardian angel with a superiority complex. People were still coming by to see it. Neighbors, folks from the next block over. Even one guy who drove up from the next town and asked to take a selfie with it like it was Mount Rushmore. Meanwhile, Karen was nowhere. No patrols. No petty notes. No clipboard. It was like the whole neighborhood had been unshackled. But then, the letters started. Typed. Anonymous. Slipped into mailboxes like guilt-ridden valentines from a passive-aggressive ghost. Be mindful of spreading false representations that damage community trust. There is still time to correct recent poor choices before formal action is pursued. Real art uplifts, not humiliates. One had a quote from Gandhi on it, which, bold, considering the source. I didn't need forensic analysis to know who sent them. The font screamed, Karen downloaded this template from a leadership Pinterest board. And the veiled threats were as subtle as a clown at a funeral. But here's the thing, no one cared anymore. She had overplayed her hand so thoroughly that every whisper of control she tried to reclaim just made people laugh harder. Even the HOA board, what remained of it after 2 members resigned out of pure secondhand embarrassment, was done. They'd called a vote. Karen had been officially suspended pending review. Did she accept this gracefully? Of course not. She called an emergency town hall in her driveway. Yes, you heard that right. She set up folding chairs, had a tiny podium. There was even a battery-powered mic clipped to her fleece vest. She stood in front of a sign that read, Restore Order to Sycamore Ridge. About 11 people showed up, mostly just to see what flavor of meltdown she was brewing. I watched from my porch with a lawn chair and a root beer, like I was about to review a local play. She began with, This neighborhood used to stand for something, and spiraled from there. Something about decency, about structure, about standards slipping into chaos, which was rich coming from someone who tried to find a family for letting their kids play hopscotch. Then she mentioned me. Well, she mentioned certain individuals who believe that juvenile cartoons equate to civic engagement, which was basically name-dropping in HOA dialect. She tried to rally the crowd. She really did. But people were scrolling on their phones. One guy openly snickered when she said moral decay. The kids across the street started drawing her mural in chalk on their driveway, clipboard and all. That's when she snapped. Like, full-on meltdown. Started yelling that the mural was a targeted psychological attack and demanded it be destroyed. To which I stood up and calmly said, Karen, it's art. You encouraged creativity. remember? She looked at me like I'd slapped her with an oil painting. Then, cherry on top, someone played the viral remix of her screaming, "I'm the board," from a Bluetooth speaker in their pocket. She tried to talk over it, but the crowd was already losing it. By the end of her speech, 4 people had walked away, 3 had posted videos, and 1 neighbor, God bless her, handed Karen a juice box and said, "For your nerves, hon." She left early, didn't even pack up the chairs. By the next morning, the sign was gone. The mic? Still lying in the grass like a relic of a failed revolution. The HOA announced an official vote of no confidence the following week. Karen didn't show. Instead, we all received a terse email signed by her regretfully resigning from her duties and citing a hostile environment lacking respect for community values. Translation: she lost. Loudly. A week later, a moving truck showed up. She didn't even tell anyone she was leaving. No farewell. No offers to stay in touch. Just one long, sulky exodus as neighbors happened to be outside watering plants or walking dogs or very pointedly not helping her carry boxes. I watched from my porch again. Same chair. Same root beer. This time with popcorn. As she backed out of the driveway one last time, I gave her a little wave. She didn't wave back. But I swear to you, Cartoon Karen on the fence was smirking just a little harder that day. But the story doesn't end there. Because when a neighborhood sheds its dictator, something magical happens. It parties. We didn't plan a party. It just happened. 1 minute, we were a neighborhood of awkward waves and clipped hedges. The next, someone set up a bounce house. The Henderson twins dragged out their karaoke machine, and Mrs. Lindstrom, who'd once filed a noise complaint against a cricket, was handing out cupcakes shaped like Karen's infamous clipboard. It was beautiful. We called it Liberation Barbecue. Someone even made a banner, Freedom from Clipboard Rule, EST. This week, it was potluck style. Lawn chairs everywhere. Kids playing tag in the street. No one yelled at them. No one passed out flyers about approved sidewalk usage. People brought dogs, portable speakers, even a guy from down the block who turned out to be a DJ. That night, under string lights and the faint smell of grilled corn, our suburban village finally felt like a community. And yes, people posed for pictures in front of the mural. Someone even brought chalk and drew bonus accessories on Cartoon Karen: devil horns, laser eyes, a sash that read Miss HOA 1984. I left it all up for a week. You'd think the mural would have gotten old. It didn't. If anything, it became the neighborhood mascot, a symbol of what we'd endured, a monument to the battle of sanity versus bureaucracy. And to my mild surprise, nobody asked me to take it down. In fact, a few neighbors started asking me to paint their fences too. Not with Karen, of course. She was a one-time boss-level enemy. But I got to do a mural of a rocket ship for the kid next door, a garden scene for an older couple on the corner, even a whimsical set of jungle animals for the local daycare. Apparently, a little color goes a long way in an HOA battleground. As for Karen, last I heard, she moved to a gated community across town. One of those places with buzzers and bylaws so strict they'd fine you for blinking too loud. The rumor is she tried to get elected to their HOA board within a month. They said no. Twice. Poetic, really. She left behind a legacy of laminated notices and bitter glances. But no one misses her. Not even the old guy she used to play HOA poker with. He came by during the party, toasted to her departure, and muttered something about finally being able to grow tomatoes again. Amen. So yeah, that's how it went. I moved to the suburbs looking for peace. I got bureaucracy, power trips, and one cartoon-worthy tyrant with a passion for rules and a pathological fear of lawn flamingos. But in the end, I got something better. I got a neighborhood that woke up, that remembered how to laugh, how to push back, how to stand up, not with torches and pitchforks, but with sarcasm, sidewalk chalk, and just the right shade of petty artistic revenge. And the fence? Still standing, still watching, still fabulous. If you ever drive through Sycamore Ridge and you see a 6-foot-tall Cartoon Karen glaring over a fence holding a flaming clipboard and wearing a sash that says, "No Joy Zone," just know, she changed this neighborhood. Just not the way she planned. And at the bottom, still in neat little script, Disclaimer: any resemblance to real persons, living or clipboard wielding, is purely coincidental. Sure it is. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.